Hello everybody, as you saw by the opening scenes, today we'll be playing the game Konung 2. It's the sequel to the game Konung Legends of the North published in 2000, and I think it's the best game out of the franchise. The game's been published in 2004 and I think it deserves more recognition than it gets on YouTube. At least as far as I searched, there isn't really an English playthrough of the game. And since it's an Eastern game, it's kinda hard to find someone to go through an English playthrough. Of course, I've also played it in my native language, but I'll try to explain everything as the game goes by. Some of the translations in English are not that accurate, so I'll try to fix it up a little bit. And yeah, we can start playing, but first I want to apologize in advance for my accent if it's a little bit misleading, or how should I say it, like you couldn't understand it as well, but I'll try my best to have a coherent game. And before even going to a new character, I would like to go through the options because I want to explain a few things. So here we have everything. So for the difficulty, honestly, I could even play on the highest difficulty, but if you're looking for a personal enjoyment level, I would always recommend playing on easy, since the game is inherently hard because of the game mechanics and not because of the difficulty. The spiking up the difficulty only makes the game more grindy. And like, I don't know, for the game is grindy enough already, so you need to grind a lot. So I don't think making it as difficult as possible or grinding even more than you need is necessary. So playing on the highest difficulty is something I'm not going to look forward to for my first playthrough of the game. Technically, obviously it's not my first playthrough, as I'm going to tutor you towards through the game, but if eventually I make another playthrough and it's somehow requested or whatever, I could play on the highest difficulty. It's not a problem for me, but for now I'm just gonna play on the easiest difficulty for a nice leisure fun playthrough. My second option, the day and night cycle. Actually, the day and night cycle, when it's turned on, it only contributes to the game being a little bit more annoying, and you'll see why. But you actually need the day and night cycle mechanic for one section of the game. Like, it's really important for one of... It's literally, if you don't have the day and night cycle at one point of the game, you can't progress through the game, but we'll get to there. So everything else is just about graphics, but they're not that good anyway. I find them charming, to be honest. I like the old RPG graphics, so we'll leave all of this on. So for the short and full descriptions, I never understood this, to be honest. What's up with the colors and all that shit, but anyways, I mean, I'm kind of colorblind, but I can still see that the colors change. I don't get why that is there, like how does the function work? But anyways, enough of this, let's continue with creating a new game. There's 6 characters, and this is very important because each of them has different lore and is integrated in the game in a different way. They start in different places, and I mean, it's kind of obvious, but as you can see, it's pretty much 3 different ethnics or races, if you could say. So Valmira and Ratibor are Slavs, Helga and Einar are Vikings, and Anastasia and Alexander are Byzantians. So this has very much to do with history, I would say, which is pretty fun. So it's kind of like factions, but not really, because even if you are a Slav, you can go to Viking villages or whatever. But more on that later. There's so much to talk about with this game. I don't want to cluster in the first episodes of the playthrough, but we can go over the characters. So Princess Vilmira is the last of the Blackwood Prince's kin. The loyal warriors of the prince's militia had to pay their very lives to salvage her from the Lure soldiers who have raised her kin's village. Back then Vilmira swore to avenge for the hardships that had been brought upon her. The call for the hardships. The call of the Blood Titans has only strengthened her determination to fight against the ruler of Woodland. So Woodland is pretty much the country or the land that you're playing on, like the entire land. The main part of the game is on considered on Woodland. Following in traditions of her ancestors, Vilmira is skilled in swordsmanship, and in her noble heart forever lives the memory of guards who saved her. That is why, when she started to restore her personal guard troops, she preferred to recruit male warriors, often refusing even the renowned heroines of Woodland. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a quirky thing about her. She recruits mainly men. I think there's a few women you can get in her troops, but that's one of the things that's kind of negative with her. You're stuck with mostly men, but then again there's not that many females that you can recruit anyway. So moving on, we have Ratibor. Ratibor, Prince of Pinesville, is the eldest and the most experienced of the direct Titan descendants. Throughout his life, Ratibor has accomplished a lot. The prospering and densely populated village is paying a large tribute, thus replenishing the already large treasury of the prince, and his loyal militia is ready to start out on a campaign at the first word of their commander. Ratibor's honest and adamant character is known throughout Woodland, and and it is not for nothing that Ratibor considers him his and it is not for nothing that the ruler considers him his worst enemy and sends countless troops to Ratibor's lands. So going more so in that sentence, the thing with Ratibor is he quite possibly has the easiest start, because he starts with 2 troopers on his side, a village, starting money, very nice starting stats as you can see here. But the thing is, he starts off the easiest, but the further the game goes, he becomes harder and harder to play, because you encounter way more fighters or thieves in your adventures. So he's really easy early game, but late game he's very hard, I would say so. As far as Vilmira goes, she is average on both sides. Early late game she's okay. She also starts with a village, so that's a bonus, but it's not that hard to obtain villages, as we'll see from the playthrough. So let's continue with his lore. Many of these attacks were repelled by the Pinesville guard troops, and the prince, a battle axe in his hand, was always leading his warriors himself. This is a little bit going over how the poor translation was going through here, but it's not that important here. It's pretty much just saying, yeah, he's courageous, he's like using his war axe, and he's leading his troops to victory. But when we go to essential lore of the game, I'll try to explain everything as cohesive as it is in the actual game. Let's go over the Vikings. Helga is the healer from the Vikings lower camp. She knows everything about the art, healing and potion making. Helga's skillful hands tore the lives of many a warrior away from the cold embrace of death. Like all the Vikings, she is a well-trained and skilled warrior too. Helga is accustomed to any type of weapons and feels confident in a fight even without her armor. Brave and determined, she can command a large brigade. The best warriors and heroines of Woodland would follow her without hesitation. So the thing with Helga is, she's actually stuck in her camp as a healer the first the first hour or so in her playthrough. Depends on how fast you play, to be honest. But after that, she gets the village because she discovers some secrets. But we're not playing her, so I'm not gonna overhear that. She's just a healer. She also has a pretty nice early game because of that. because healing is quite essential to the game, as we'll see later on. Let's continue with Einar. So Einar is the only one whose core gameplay, the first 5 levels or so, I would say even more, are not directly accustomed to the main part of the map, which is woodland. It's actually, as we can see here, Einar the Viking is a guard of Scandinavian merchant ship. It is his first time in woodland and he is not familiar with the traditions and customs of the locals. See, there's a misspell, the call with one L. Anyways, the call of the Titans found Einar in the Viking marine camp the day before they were to start out for home shores. So to head out for home shores, I assume that's what it means. Ardent and unrestrained in character, he soon got his first fight against the woodland ruler soldier. As a result, Einar was thrown into jail and was left behind by his ship. So that's the thing, Einar has quite possibly the worst early game. He scales very well into the late game, but his stats are very poor, and like his positioning at the very start of the game is nightmarish. Like I would only relate his early game to Anastasia, because she also doesn't start on the main part of the map and she has a kind of a tricky storyline there, and she's also very much considered the hardest character to play, and we'll see why when we hear about her lore. She's up next. The Byzantians, Anastasia. Anastasia is the Byzantine archer of the ruler's flying island guards. So she initially works for the ruler, and the ruler is actually the final boss of the game. And what happens there? She is righteously considered one of the best heroines of Woodland. Very few people may compare to her in bow and crossbow skills. From the very first day Anastasia appeared on the flying island, the ward bracelet felt a vague but an inevitable menace. However, finding the source of the menace and destroying it proves to be an impossible task, even for this most powerful singing item. The call of the blood of the Titans has turned Anastasia's life. She decided to flee the flying island, gather a company of the best heroines, and enter into an open struggle against the ruler. An open struggle, that's a weird way to phrase it. Anyways, there's a key word here. She decided to flee the flying island, gather a company of the best heroines. Because she doesn't recruit male. No male in her party. And that's a really big disadvantage, because the core component part of recruitment troops are actually male in the game, which makes her game very hard. Like extremely hard, I would say so. Let's move over to Alexander. So when deciding for a character, I kind of had a preference, but then again I was like, nah, let's be spontaneous, be a little bit fun, and I tried to put in a randomizer to see who will I get, and I actually got Alexander. So this playthrough will be from Alexander's point of view, which should be interesting, considering he has also kind of a hard start, at least his positioning, and you'll see why. Personally, if I had to take a preference, it would be Ratibor, because of his easy early game, and he has such an advantage early game that you can actually play a little bit with village management, which is really nice component of the game, I would say so. And his late game, where it will be important, he will be the hardest to play. So the later the game goes, Ratibor will be the hardest to play, and I like that scaling. I don't really like someone being really hard at the start and then being easy by the end. I don't know, that it's... I like to scale it equally, you know? But anyways, if I had to suggest the first time player, play Ratibor, a very nice character to start off with. But anyways, we will be playing Alexander, the last of our heroes. Alexander the Byzantine is a Magi apprentice, the youngest of the living Titans' descendants. His lack of practical experience is well compensated with his amazing intuition, which he had since birth. Alexander has a wonderful feeling of other people and almost always chooses the right tone in any conversation. So I think what that means is Alexander has a wonderful feeling. I would say Alexander is very keen with the people he recruits. That's what it's supposed to say, because he will not accept weak soldiers in his party. He's never gonna let himself be dragged down. He only recruits people he can make use of. So he's a wise person, very much so. Even though he's the youngest, he has been trained very well, as it says, by a Magi, which is a very key component to one of his stats, which we can see here, which is magic. And that's an important stat the later the game goes, but more on that later. So continue with his story. Where were we? Oh yeah, the bad translation. In any conversation, suspecting the high calling of the young Byzantine, the Magi have not only taught him their secrets, but have also trained him in combat. Thanks to daily exercising, Alexander has become one of the best fencers in Woodsland. His weapon of choice is a two-handed sword, which is pretty fucking cool in my opinion, because like most of the characters will be catered towards one-handers. Like Einar starts with unarmed combat, but eventually you switch to dual wielding because he has the initial 25 dual wield swords most likely, or axes even, most likely swords. Whereas Ratibor, even though it says two-handed battle axe, his two-handed skills with axes is 0, which is weird, but his skill with one-handed axes is good. So I think that's a little bit awkward, because as you can see here, he's pictured with a two-handed axe, whereas as you can see here, he has no skill in two-handed axes, instead optimizing for one-handed axes. And you can pretty much see it here, like she's a bowman, crossbowman. Yeah, she can make use of any weapon. She's a jack of all trades, to be honest. The two one-handers, and he's the only one with a two-hander, to be honest. And I think he's actually the only one that has any skill in two-handed weapons. Yeah, 45, let's see. Everything else is 0. Every other character is 0 on two-handed weapons, which is kind of unfortunate, but also I would say very fun for playing Alexander. It's a little bit fresh. I don't have much experience with him. I mostly have experience with Ratibor, Velmira and Einar, so this should be pretty damn fun. So now let's go over the statistics. I mean, I've gone on with this section or segment of the video long enough, but I think it's pretty important to go over the lore. I'm gonna take my time and do it for my enjoyment, purely, as I said earlier, be cohesive. So these are the main stats. Every time you level up, you get 25 points right away. Level 1, you get 25 points to spend on. If you level up these statistics, each point will count as 2, as you can see here. But if you level these here, it will count as 1. So that's very important to note. But there's another thing. As you can see, not every skill can be upped initially. And that's because most of these skills scale with the ranking up of these skills. These are your main stats, and these are your secondary stats. That's very important to the game. So let's go over the main stats. Charisma is an inborn quality of a leader, an ability to make people follow you. On the value of this parameter depends the number of warriors you can command. So charisma is pretty much, it depends how many characters you can recruit in your party. And the thing is, I have the calculations, and for every 16 points in charisma you can recruit one character, meaning the maximum points of charisma you actually need is 8 by 16, which is 128, if I'm not mistaken. That should be it, to be honest. Yeah. And if any more than 128 points in charisma is useless, because there's only 8 character slots for companions, which is more than enough, to be honest. I think if anything they should be nerfed to 4. I also think 4 is more than enough, but we can go on with that later on with the game. Agility. Whether or not you will be able to duck the blade of the enemy sword or dodge a flying arrow depends solely upon your agility. Only an agile warrior can shoot from the most powerful bows and crossbows. An agile hero will always be able to move faster about the vast plains of woodland. So the thing is, agility, I would say, from the main stats, if there was like a tier list or whatever, so I would have charisma and vitality as tier 1, most important skills, and strength and agility as tier 2. Agility is excellent because it's amazing for combat. It makes you run way faster. It allows the use of ranged weapons, which are not that good, but are actually required for some fights. Like some fights you literally cannot do anything with melee. You literally need ranged capabilities, and ranged is always a nice mixture. If everyone is like melee, then it's like a little bit like an ogre fest. Just go and smash like a madman. So agility is a pretty nice and important skill, not so much as charisma and vitality, but we'll go over all of them eventually. Intelligence. The power in your head is often more important than the power in your hand in the fight against the ruler. Only intellect will make you a powerful magician, a skilled healer, and an experienced brigand. So the thing is, there is no magic in the game in the terms of casting spells or whatever, which I've always been curious about this talent. I never knew why would you ever want to level up, rank up intelligence. Because the thing is, it says the power in your head is more important than the power in your hand in the fight against the ruler. Only intellect will make you a powerful magician. There's no such thing as a magician here. A skilled healer, but as far as I know, it doesn't improve your healing capabilities at all. At least in my experience. And an experienced regent. So, there's been theory craft that the more intelligence you have, the more dialogue choices that you get during the game, but I also haven't experienced on that, and if anyone is familiar with it, I would love to know. Like, let me know in the comments if that's a thing, because as far as I know, intelligence is pretty useless. I think the only thing that's confirmed is one quest I know intelligence can help you go through if you don't have enough healing or alchemy. If you have high enough intelligence, you can unlock the quest's answer, you could say, by having a lot of intelligence. And another thing is, I think it unlocks these skills, like if you level up intelligence, it will eventually unlock the capability to level up these skills. And same goes for learning, actually, kind of the same place as intelligence. Although learning has a use, it has a confirmed use, albeit it's not as useful as some of the other skills, but let's go over the tooltip. Learning is a wonderful feature for any hero. It will allow you to gain higher value for all the skills on your character. So that's pretty much correct. Learning, the more you learn, you level up your learning, the more you can unlock these skills down here. But the thing is, early on, you don't want learning at all. You want to prioritize these two skills, strength and vitality, because they allow you to wear better gear. And only in the very late game, when you literally have these maxed out, do you want to start contributing to learning points. So at least it has some sort of use, albeit it's not the greatest of uses. And let's continue to two very vital stats, strength and vitality. So for strength, we have your physical strength predetermines how powerful the blow of your sword or axe will be. A strong warrior will spit the enemy armor like a straw basket. So a little bit hyperbolized, but anyways, it's pretty much, yeah, you do more damage, you can wear better shields, better swords, but only swords, like better swords and shields, that's it. And here comes the god of all stats, vitality. The higher the vitality, the more enemy blows the character will withstand. You'll be able to walk faster with heavier loads, wear the best armor and fight with the heaviest weapons that crack through the steel helmets of your enemies like through an eggshell. Again, hyperbolized. I think it's a little bit funny how they translated it. But anyways, vitality. All your armor depends on your vitality skill. How much you can carry depends on your vitality skill. Like the tooltip says, how much damage you can take depends on your vitality skills. And the clubs or maces, I can say, like here we go, like vitality, it matters the axes you can wear, the clubs you can wear, the two-handed axes you can wear, and the two-handed clubs. So axes and clubs vitality, strength is for swords and two-handed swords. And those are the core components of the game as far as main stats go. And I've already talked long enough about this section, so I'll try to really quickly go over these stats. So max weight, yeah, traveling about woodland, you have to carry heavy armor, weapons and shield. Other items and belongings you may need on your way will go into your travel sack. Carrying all of this load and fighting fierce beasts and enemies will prove hard. Everything will depend on your vitality. Yeah, this actually doesn't actually matter, like you can't level up max weight or max party. You level up vitality, you get 0.3 max weight, then 0.4, then 0.3, 0.3, 0.4. So you see how it scales? It's a little bit iffy on the way they've done it, but I think it's pretty much you get 3.33, and every 3 times it rounds up to a 4 instead of a 3, so that's how it works. And the max party, gathering a large and well-trained brigade is hard. Without it, however, you will not win over your enemy, nor will you make it through the woods and caves inhabited by monsters and evil beasts. People will only follow a true leader whom they will be able to trust their lives with. And to prove my theory correct, right now, max party 1, I got it to 16, max party 2. So max party 1 means I can't take anyone else because I'm already one person in the party. Max party 2 means I can get a second person in the party, which is fabulous. And this will be crucial to our gameplay. Let's continue quickly. Unarmed, you never know what may happen to your hero. Even the strongest warriors may become captured, or all of your weapons will break in fierce battles. That's when fist fighting skills become needed. So that's unarmed is pretty irrelevant skill. It's only relevant for Einar in his very first encounter because he literally has no gear, nothing, and he has to fight off a guard. And that's the only time unarmed is useful. And actually one quest at the end game requires, well, it doesn't really require unarmed combat. You can kinda cheese it, the quest that is. I'm not gonna spoil too much, but it has one use in the game, and it's not an important skill to level up at all. Two-weapon fighting. The top combat skill is the ability to fight with two weapons in both hands. Even the strongest opponent will not be able to withstand your attacks. However, mastering with the skill is not an easy matter. First, you would have to learn to fight well with one sword, axe or club. Train hard and your efforts will pay off. And this is a dope skill. Like, this is a very nice skill to have. Like, two one-handers is almost always the best combo. Like, if you want to be like a bootleg, like budget hero, you should invest literally all your points in vitality and two-weapon fighting, and just have the best armor, the best access, one-handed access, and dual wield one-handed access. That's one of the best things you could do. The thing is, two-handed weapons scale a little bit better, but they're a little bit harder to invest into, but we'll go more over that later. Mortal Strike, an amazing skill, which unfortunately is very hard to level up. A Mortal Strike will penetrate any defense and go straight into the heart of your enemy, no matter how strong and powerful he is. On blow, one blow, that's a typo, and your opponent will drop dead to your feet. This skill is harder to master. For that, you would need to develop at least 50% of one of the combat skills. Meaning, I can't level it up at all until I have my two-handed swords at 50. And even then, I'll still have to continue leveling up that skill to continue leveling Mortal Strike. But it's an amazing ability. It's extremely overpowered, especially later on in the game. And for swords, it's pretty obvious. I'm not gonna go over these. I'll just read the tooltip. A Mortal Strike, nope. A sword is a loyal companion to any warrior. It is the most reliable weapon in Woodland. A well-trained warrior is sword 3 on skilled opponents. Increase your skill, developing the strength and agility of your characters. An axe is one of the most widespread weapons in Woodland. A very powerful one, but fast to break too. That is why an experienced warrior will always check the strength of his axe, or else it may fail you in the wrongest possible moment, the worst possible moment. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, the poor translations. Club. This is a simple and relatively cheap but deadly weapon. Only a strong and enduring character will be able to fully master this primeval weapon, which has not lost any of its power till nowadays. Two-handed swords. A two-handed sword is an experienced warrior who split stones, and in combat it seems that the great titan himself is standing on the battlefield. A warrior may be killed, but not until thousands of his enemies will perish by his sword. Perfection in your skills in handling this lethal weapon will cost you a lot of sweat to improve your skills in training, barracks, and in combat. This will help you prepare yourself for the final battle against the ruler of Woodland. With two-handed club, you will be able to inflict devastating blows on your enemies. Do not forget, however, that your character will not be able to wield a shield, which means his armor will be weak. So, weird two tips, but you get the jig. I'm not gonna go over it too much. Crossbow. So here's the ranged weapons: crossbow and bow. The thing is, crossbow is always the better budget option, I would say so, and we can read over the tooltips and I'll go over them after that. This fearsome weapon was brought to Woodland by the Byzantines. A crossbow has a better killing range than a bow. Develop your agility and you will become the best archer in Woodland. Using poison on your arrows is not disgraceful when fighting against a ruthless and wicked enemy. Bow. A bow is a menacing weapon in the hands of a master. Becoming the best archer in Woodland, that requires both agility and power. Remember that burning arrows will raise the enemy's count. So that's another component of the game later on, as I said. So, there's far more bows in the game than crossbows, but the thing is, I think the most powerful crossbow requires way less agility than the most powerful bow. And the thing is, even though it requires less agility, I think the crossbow still does better damage than the bow. So crossbows are always better, in my opinion, or as far as I've seen. Then we have healing. Traveling through woods and highlands, a character has to know how to heal his wounds, his own wounds, as well as the wounds of his loyal companions, while the road of the nearest healer may be long and beset with dangers. I'll go more precisely over these skills later, because we'll have to talk a lot about them. When the way of the warrior brings you to thick woods and swamps, knowing how to brew your own healing or poisonous potions will help save money and time. Pathfinding. It's good to have a skilled pathfinder in your company. He will always find the shortest and safest ways across the vast plains of Woodlands, sometimes even the careful forest beasts, and wicked robbers will not be able to notice your troops moving right under their nose. So this skill is pretty much for moving fastly through the map and encountering less enemies on the map. Continuing, we have Merchant. There's no shame in knowing how to trade, even for the bravest of the brave. Buying an expensive sword is cheap, and getting a better price for what you sell will ensure your success in the fight against the ruler of fools. Yeah, pretty much Merchant skill is getting going up every time you make a purchase or you sell, and it's not that crucial, but it's nice to have. Identification, this is pretty much for when you pick a magical item, it has a chance of being like it just displays an unidentified object, like, or magical items, so you can't actually equip it or view its properties. It's kind of like in Diablo, where you have unidentified items. If people are familiar, it's the biggest RPG of the time. But pretty much identification is a very important skill, which can also be cheesed in a very very niche way, which I'll see if we'll go through that route later on. But anyways, identifying the secret capabilities of the singing items left from the Age of the Titan is not as easy as it seems. Only he who has seen a lot of singing items since his life will be able to determine what good or evil they will bring to their owner. And then we have magic. Only he who has reached perfection in his secret skill will be able to open all the secrets of these artifacts. An uneducated character will find no use even in the most powerful artifacts. So this goes over like a lot of the singing items in the games, magic runes. It's pretty much like an enchanting skill, you could say so. It's not that important early game, but as the later the game goes, it's definitely an important skill to have. Smithery, a good warrior grinds and repairs his weapon himself. Taking good care of your sword and armor will extend their life considerably. A character having no skills in smithery, however, will only spoil his own weapons instead of repairing them. Yeah, actually the tooltip did a good job at explaining. Masonry, what a fucking useless skill, to be honest. Okay, maybe I'm an idiot, but as far as I know, you literally need masonry for one quest in the entire game and nothing else. Literally nothing else at all in the game. Like, only one quest. There has to be a good mason in each of your villages. Only he will be able to restore burned buildings and construct new ones. A hero too should learn something about construction. Helping the people will pay off. Yeah, there's really not a thing such as like someone burning your villages. Like, sure, there is a burning camp. Actually, he starts below the burning camp, but as far as I know, you can't really undo the burning, to be honest. I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I hope I'm wrong. I would love to discover new things about the game. That's also what's really charming about the game, is you always discover something new. Every time I've played it, there's a little bit something new that comes through. So I really hope I can somehow rebuild that burned village, but I haven't found a way for that to happen. But we'll see as the playthrough goes. And finally, after all this rambling of me just non-stop talking, village management. Being a ruler of the people is also an art. Mastering it will help you here collect larger tributes and get more assistance of the villagers in battles against the soldiers of the ruler of Woodland. So the tribute part is correct. About assistance, I don't know. If anything, I would hope the higher your village management skill is, the harder it will be for the ruler to conquer your villages, which is also a factor in the game. It's quite a niche thing. You need to protect your villages, otherwise they will be occupied, and then you're kind of fucked, because you need to save them. You actually need to go there, kill the occupiers, and then the village will be free once more. But everyone would have lost their weapons, which is very, very unfortunate. So, with that being said, I think we're done and we can actually start the game. and I think I'll be putting this as a episode 0 epilogue, so not everyone has to see it. It's just like a thing to be more like to have a styled playthrough per se, you know, because maybe not everyone knows the game, and I'm trying, like I said, I want to be really cohesive with the game. Maybe it's annoying, but after all, it's a very unpopular game. Nobody knows about this game. I'm not expecting much. I'm doing this for my own entertainment, fun, you could say, and experimenting with YouTube. So yeah, that's about it for the first for the episode 0, you could say, and I'll see you next time when we actually start the game.